White House Chief of Staff John Kelly was recently speaking about whether or not Donald Trump plans on extending the deadline for protections for DACA recipients. As we know, on March 5th, the protections for some of these DACA recipients is set to expire, and there is some worry that Congress isn't going to pass something that will protect them further into the future. Now, recently during an interview, John Kelly said, don't think Trump is going to extend that March 5th deadline. In fact, here's his exact quote. He said, the White House is not so sure this president has the authority to extend it. I doubt very much. He also said something kind of interesting about DACA dreamers, okay? And he differentiated between the DACA recipients, the individuals who applied and got this protected status and these workers' visas, and those who did not. Now, I want you to hear from him yourselves, so let's take a listen to the first video.
I can't imagine men and women of goodwill who begged this president to solve the problem of DACA. And as generous as that 4 pillars has been, I can't imagine they would vote against it. I mean, this is more than they could have imagined. And I would offer that if before the champions of DACA were members on one side of the aisle, I would say right now the champion of all people that are DACA is Donald Trump.
He believes that the current champion for these DACA recipients is Donald Trump, the person who essentially ended the protected status for them with a 6-month delay until Congress can figure out what to do. That guy who's holding these DACA recipients hostage over the issue of a border wall, that's the guy. Right. That's the guy who's a champion for these dreamers who have been in the country since they were children. Okay, they didn't make the decision to come here. They came here because family members brought them in. And in order to get that protected status, you have to prove that you're a productive member of society. You have to prove that you're educated, that you're a job creator, that you add something to this country. It's not like anyone who applies gets the protected status. It's just so incredibly frustrating because you guys are right when you say that, Republicans will spin things and it works, it's slimy, it sticks. But to say that Trump is the champion for these DACA recipients is just ridiculous.
It's more about John Kelly than it does about any of the other people. And John Kelly, you saw him, you're like, oh, this guy seems reasonable. He's coming in, he's going to fix the White House. He's somebody who thinks this guy is the big. They're all the same.
They are
all the same. I'm waiting for it to happen with James Mattis, who is still to me the last holdout of reasonability in that whole world there.
Well, not to divert completely on Mattis, but he's changed his stance on nuclear armaments completely. I mean, he's all of a sudden gone scary like Trump, so we can get to that another time. But yeah, I agree. I sort of held Mattis to a higher standard, but I don't know about that anymore. And this is empty messaging. This is what they do. It's sloganism. He's the champion for the DACA recipients, and then the base sort of regurgitates that. And Sean Hannity says that over and over again, and it's BS. Obviously.
Only Donald Trump says that, right? I'm the best friend that DACA recipients have ever had.
Right, and they just regurgitate whatever Trump has to say about himself.
Yeah. It's like a cult.
And again, if he Trump genuinely cared about these DACA recipients and wanted to protect them, then he would be pressuring Congress to pass a standalone bill that extends, their workers' visas and their protection, but he's not doing that. He's literally using them as leverage in order to get what he wants, right?
And just a last thing, because I think you make a very important point. This is a group of people and to hold this over their head, I mean, and as Anna said, and she ran through a couple of the statistics are overwhelming as to how productive a group of people these DACA recipients are. And to hold this over their head, I think it's almost inhuman as you read it lacks any humanity, I should say that. Because if you read the stories of those who've come here when they were 8, 9, 10 years old as teenagers, and they've built lives. The LA Times is doing a series on this, and they follow through what's happening to these people. They built businesses, and as Anna says, they've employed people, and they've paid taxes, and all of these things that are associated with being a good citizen and contributing to the society. And now, to see this turned on its side, it lacks a humanity that I think is not reflective of America.
I mean, some of them have either served or are currently serving in our military. I mean, it's just, and again, the American people in general are right on this issue. It is a popular proposal to continue protecting these DACA recipients. But again, they're being used as, hostages in this ridiculous debate over funding a border wall that we do not need and isn't actually going to help, protect the border.
And everybody in Congress knows we don't need it and that it's not going to help protect the border.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah. At least it's affordable, the border wall.
Yeah, that's true.
Billions of tens of billions in taxpayer money to fund a wall that members of Congress agree is a waste of money. Okay, so with that said, let's go to the second video, and this is what I want you to pay close attention to. This is where John Kelly tries to differentiate between those who applied for DACA protection and those who did not.
It's kind of a vaudeo more than a video.
It's a vaudeo. That's a good word. Yes. Take a listen.
There are 690,000 official DACA registrants. And the president sent over what amounts to be 2.5 times that number to 1.8 million. The difference between 690 and 1.8 million were the people that some would say were too afraid to sign up, others would say were too lazy to get off their asses, but they didn't sign up.
So that seems like a small thing, but the reason why that stood out to me is because it's the consistent messaging that you hear from members of this White House. Just like sometimes it's very explicit and overt where they make it seem as though, these are criminals and these are dangerous people that we need to watch out for. And then sometimes it's a little more subtle, like the lazy comment that he made right there. Oh, really? Where are your numbers? Who says that some of them are lazy? Who says that some of them are afraid? Like he just kind of pulled that out of his ass.
The ones in the military, lazy, afraid.
Yeah, the job creators, lazy, afraid.
They're only in the military because they didn't have bone spurs. So it's right.
No, I mean, you're right. It's a smear. And that's what they're going to increasingly do. They're going to smear this group of people. And we've already, and I won't do it again, talked about who they are and how they don't deserve to be smeared. But this is what they do. And Anna is right. Sometimes it's a bullseye attack, and sometimes it's a kind of a sideswipe attack, and this is kind of in that sideswipe. But either way, it dirties up that group so that Americans slowly begin to rethink it if this becomes a front and center issue in the next month or so.
And rethink Kelly. I mean, that's the other thing. It dirties up Kelly, who everybody had seen, or not everybody, but a lot of people had come to rely on as kind of a stabilizing force in the White House, who saw things and whispered in the president's ear, you can't say you're the champion of DACA recipients. Well, now he's saying it himself. So it has that effect too, aside from the
that's so true. You recalibrate on Kelly, don't you, Anna? I mean, you start thinking.
Yeah, and look, to be fair, I mean, I think the reason why people on the left started seeing Kelly in a more favorable light is because relative to other members of Trump's administration, he seems halfway decent. But I love the comment that you made earlier, Michael. They're all the same. I mean, maybe they're different in their public rhetoric, but overall, when it comes to ideology, they're the same. And that sideswipe regarding DACA, not DACA, but Dreamers who didn't apply for DACA protection, referring to them as lazy is just another example of them throwing that anti-immigrant propaganda out there. And by the way, if he's concerned about people not applying for the protection in the future, I mean, think about it. Put yourself in a Dreamer's shoes. Would you do it? Would you go to the government and say, hey, I'm applying for protected status, knowing that there are bad actors like Donald Trump and members of his cabinet that would aggressively go after you in the future if they don't get everything that they want from Congress?
Yeah.
Well, the ICE raids are being played so big and so high profile and so brutal. I mean, some of these ICE raids are separating families right there on the spot without warning. They won't even let you go back for a pair of shoes.
And they're random and symbolic. They're not
exactly.
It's not like this is well thought out.
And so to Anna's point, I mean, of course, it makes you think 2 and 3 times before you want to register with the government. I mean,
I certainly wouldn't want to.
Yeah, you want to stay in the shadows. It's just the opposite effect of that which you want.
You just watched the video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. TYTnetwork.com/join.